In today's video, we're going to talk about equivalent fractions. Before we begin, we need to define the word equivalent. The word equivalent means equal. We recently learned that if two fractions are on the same part of the number line, so for example, 1/2 and 2/4, that means they are equal. We can also look at this example to further prove that 1/2 and 2/4 are equal or equivalent fractions. I have two cookies. They are the same size, but one was broken into 2 pieces and the other was split into 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. We'll first look at this cookie. If it's cut into 2 pieces, that means the denominator would be 2. If this cookie is cut into 4 pieces, that means the denominator would be 4. So for this cookie, I ate 1 piece, making my fraction 1/2. Now, if we look over here at this cookie, how many slices would I need to eat for it to be equal to what I ate over here? Right, 1 slice, 2, showing that 1/2 and 2/4 are equal. 1/2 and 2/4 are not the only equivalent fractions. So in this video, we're going to continue to explore how to find equivalent fractions. One way to find equivalent fractions is to use manipulatives. Here I'm looking at some virtual manipulatives. I have 1/4 and I want to figure out how many eighths it would take to equal 1/4. So if I put down 1/8, I can see that I still have a little bit to go before I'm equal or equivalent to 1/4. If I put 2/8 down, I can see that that is equivalent to 1/4, and it even lines it up for me and says equivalent. So when the manipulatives perfectly align and take up the same amount of space, that tells me that they are equal or equivalent. In this example, I have 1/4 and 1/4. If I add those together, 1/4 plus 1/4, that gives me 2/4. I have 1/8 and 1/8, which gives me 2/8. I want to figure out how many eighths would be equivalent to 2/4. So I'll continue to add eighths until they take up the same amount of space and perfectly align. This again tells me that they are equivalent, so 2/4 is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 4/8. Another strategy for determining equivalent fractions is to extend fraction line and skip count by numerator, then skip count by denominator. So if we have the fraction 1/2, our fraction line is right here in the middle, so to extend that, we'll just continue to draw it out. Then we're going to skip count by the numerator. So the numerator here is 1, so we're just going to count by ones. So I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I'll move down to the denominator. This denominator is 2, so here I'm going to skip count by 2. So 2, 4, 6. As I'm skip counting by 2s, I want to write those numbers right underneath the new numbers I've written up top. So 2, 4, 6, 8. So here I've made fractions that are equivalent to 1/2. To finalize my answers, I'll go ahead and box all of my fractions in. So 1/2, 2/4, 3/6, 4/8. If necessary, I could keep going. So remember, since the original numerator up top was 1, here I'm just counting by ones. 1, 2, 3, 4. The next number would be 5. Since my original denominator was 2, here I'm skip counting by 2s. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So 5/10 is also equivalent to 1/2. We can use this strategy with just about any fraction. So next, let's try 2/3. So first, I'll extend the fraction line. I'll look at my numerator. My numerator is 2, which means I'm going to skip count by 2s. Usually, I like to start by adding 3 more numbers. So if I'm going to skip count by 2s, so 2, 4, 6, 8. I'll move down to my denominator, which is 3, meaning this time I'm going to skip count by 3s. Remember, as I write my answers when skip counting by 3s, I want to write them right underneath the numbers I've just written up top. So 3, 6, 9, 12. I'll then go through and box in all of my fractions. 2/3, 4/6, 6/9, and 8/12. All of these fractions are equal or equivalent fractions. Another strategy we have for finding equivalent fractions is to multiply or divide the numerator and the denominator by the same number. So if I have 1/2, to find an equivalent fraction, I can multiply the top number by 2. If I multiply the top by 2, I have to multiply the bottom by 2. It's really important that we remember with this strategy, whatever I do to the top, I do to the bottom. So 1 times 2 gives me 2. 2 times 2 gives me 4. Make sure we add that fraction line. This gives me a final answer of 2/4. Well, we already know that 1/2 is equivalent to 2/4. When I have just about any fraction, so 2/3, and I want to multiply the top and the bottom to find an equivalent fraction, I can choose just about any number that I want, as long as I'm using the same number for the top and the bottom. So 2/3 to find an equivalent fraction, I'm going to choose to multiply it this time by 4. Whatever I do to the top, I do to the bottom. 2 times 4 equals 8. Put my fraction line. 3 times 4 equals 12. This tells me that 2/3 is equal to 8/12. I can also use this strategy when I see a problem just like this. So here I have 3/4, and it tells me that 3/4 is equal to blank 12ths. So we want to figure out how many 12ths is equivalent to 3/4, and we can use our multiplication strategy to figure this out. So we know 4 times blank equals 12. So if we count by 4s, 4, 8, 12, so 3 times, so 4 times 3 equals 12. Whatever we do to the bottom, we do to the top. So if we multiplied by 3 down here, we're going to multiply by 3 up here. 3 times 3 is 9, meaning that 3/4 is equivalent to 9/12. We can also use this strategy to find equivalent fractions by dividing. So if I have the fraction 10/12, I want to divide the top and the bottom to find a new equivalent fraction. Now remember, I have to divide the top and the bottom by the same number. So I need to think of a number that I can divide 10 and 12 by evenly. So 10 and 12 I know are both even numbers, which means they are divisible by 2. 10 divided by 2 equals 5. I can also think about this as a fact family. So if I have 10 and 2, 2 times what number equals 10? That would be 5. Same thing down here. 2 times what number equals 12? I could count by 2s to figure that out. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. That gave me 6. This tells me that 10/12 is equal to 5/6. All right, in this next example, I have the fraction 12/15 equals blank. Okay, so I have 12/15 and I want to find the equivalent fraction where the numerator is 4. So here I'm going from a numerator of 12 to a numerator of 4. My numerator is getting smaller, so this tells me I'm going to divide. 12 divided by blank equals 4. Now, I can also think about this as a fact family, thinking 4 times what number equals 12. Over here, I'm going to make a quick lollipop for my 4s. I'm just going to go to 5 this time. So 0, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. So right here, I see 12. This tells me that 4 times 3 equals 12, or 12 divided by 3 equals 4. So up here, I'll put 3. Now, if I divide it by 3 up top, that means I have to divide by 3 at the bottom. 15 divided by 3 equals blank. Now, I can also think of this as a fact family. 3 times what number equals 15? To figure this out, I could skip count by 3s. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. So this means 3 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 equals 15, or 15 divided by 3 equals 5. 12/15 is equivalent to 4/6.